Okay, so yeah, welcome to the Hypergraph Hour. It's January 27th. Matthias and I are going to be talking about some amazing updates that we've had behind the scenes and stuff that we've had in the works for like 3 months. We kind of planted the seed with the roadmap. It was a couple of weeks ago, and we canceled the Hypergraph Hour last week. So if you tried to tune in, nothing happened. And that's partially because it was the president being inaugurated. The other part, it was my birthday. So no, I'm just kidding. We would have still done that. But we also took some time to really kind of reframe the whole company. And it's kind of an exciting passage as we planted a roadmap for where the company is headed for 2021. And we really talk about state channels. And I think the interesting thing to kind of note here is that a lot of people in the community have had some lack of clarity around transparency. What is Constellation doing behind the scenes? Well, we can't really say much. And we really want to do this shift away from being non-transparent. And we've been working with many people from the community that have voiced their concerns around, wanting to see more from us, and not necessarily more explanations, but just kind of what is the onboarding path of Constellation? How are we moving towards the development of everything that we're building at Constellation? And so today, Matthias and I are going to kind of walk through a little bit of a breakthrough that we've had on combining the entire ecosystem of Constellation and the framing that's going to be going on over the next couple of months. We have a team that is actually in the process of rebuilding our website as it's going to articulate and reframe the entire business as the way we see it and how state channels will be adapted. So give me 1 second. There are people trying to get in here. So long story short, we're making a lot of changes behind the scenes to really get in line and be more in touch with our community and be more connected with our community. We're bringing on a new marketing team that's going to drive a bit more direction and social media engagement and provide kind of a little bit of a facelift to Constellation with some strategic direction as it pertains to onboarding developers for state channels. And so this comes in stride with our roadmap and building out a completely new website that really articulates Constellation as this blockchain entrepreneurial framework. And so one of the exercises that we've done over the past couple of weeks is like, how do we, we went from talking about Constellation as a data validation service for enterprise, which was our intention to get enterprise adoption and really drive those early BD relationships where the sales cycle is rather long. And now with this year, as we focus more on the crypto side of business, because we have been getting adoption from major enterprises, that now it's time to really open up the floodgates to what we're doing and how that impacts every crypto holder. And this really pertains to a lot of what we call as tokenomics. And I think it's kind of an important note that we kind of look at what everybody's trying to define as what's Constellation's tokenomics? What are you guys doing? What's that metric that drives a sink or a faucet? And really the whole entire ecosystem of Constellation has been intended to make it easy for anybody to build on top of. And with Ethereum, you have a fixed metric or a fee that's already built into the protocol. And so that really doesn't allow for economic scalability. You can't really build a meaningful business in any capacity when you're prone to gas fees and such. And so over the next couple of months, as we introduce state channels, we're going to start to show how it's not about Constellation defining one metric that creates a sink, but a myriad of metrics that create sinks. And that every state channel that is produced and built on Constellation really acts as a driver for a sink and a faucet and incentivizes people to come in from every chain through cross-chain compatibility. So really, Constellation is a digital framework that allows anybody to build and conduct a business on a blockchain. And so through state channels, we're going to allow individuals to download a DAG terminal and define the rules of their business while tapping into an ecosystem powered with rewards. So when we think about this, we think about how do we open the floodgates up for anybody to come in with a business idea that they want to put on a blockchain and attach certain rewards to. Well, that comes into state channels. And what smart contracts haven't been able to do is actually program logic into the smart contract in sort of in a business standard of way. So state channels and the L0 standard is really kind of ushering in this ability for anybody to come in and be like, hey, I want to build a state channel. I want to build a lattice. I want to build whatever. And I want to incentivize people to provide liquidity or connect to my state channel in a meaningful way. That when people download the DAG terminal, they'll actually be able to select how they want their token to be designed. How are they going to attract people into their project that they're building on Constellation? And they'll be able to define those metrics of success. Is it an APY? Is it a dividend? Is it a revenue share? That's all programmatically determined in the state channel. So taking a step back, if you look at, one of the problems that we've seen in the entire blockchain ecosystem is that people can mint an ERC20 token at any given time. And then projects go around and they campaign a Excel spreadsheet that says, here are the token metrics for my project, but really that's just a distribution of people that are buying into the project. But there's no incentive structure in place for any of those holders or those purchasers of that token to hold the token. And there's no accountability in place. So I think we all know those people that have come through and said, oh, I'm going to be a holder for forever. I believe in it forever. And then these projects raise money and there's really very little accountability in place. There's no business logic to validate the business metrics to deliver on that. And so what we have is kind of this ecosystem that's being created by Ethereum, namely, that has created a token standard, but no business logic to attach incentives to people coming into the project. So what state channels will be able to do will allow individuals that want to mint a token to actually define those business rules and business logic, like an APY, a dividend, or a rev share. And that too will attract new money in a very sophisticated and rudimentary way to come into projects and have that guarantee that those metrics and that logic will be hit, that the distribution will be set forth in the way that it has been, that rewards will be distributed in an appropriate way. And so each state channel actually becomes its own business. You actually create and define your own business and how it rewards people that participate in your state channel. So one of the key takeaways in building state channels that's exciting is that everyone is going to be required to have DAG or spin up a node that creates DAG. And this is a really big component to us. To what's different than the Ethereum ecosystem is that you're really not required to have ETH to create an ERC20 token. You only really need it. You only need ETH when you want to transfer those tokens. But with Constellation, it becomes a utility of value that you have to have DAG in order to spin up a state channel. So when you go into your DAG terminal, you'll actually decide if you want to spin up a node or if you need to seek external funds of DAG. Maybe it's a DAG holder, maybe it's somebody that's bought DAG through an exchange, or maybe you have your own DAG wallet and you're not a node operator. You'll be needed to use those funds to supply liquidity for your project. And I think this is one of the big differences that's occurring in the space is that we're requiring that level of transparency to see how businesses are functioning. One of the key takeaways that we'll be pushing over at Constellation is really this idea of forging a blockchain entrepreneurship through this ecosystem. We want people to be blockchain entrepreneurs. We don't want you to just print an ERC20 token and have no accountability in place. We want that accountability programmed into the state channel so that people that want to back your project can actually see that you're delivering on what you're promising. So one of the big initiatives at Constellation, as many of you know, that we go out and procure enterprise relationships, and we're selling a license to these enterprise operations. So one business on a state channel will be the Constellation Enterprise State Channel. And the logic that we will program into that state channel will be a percentage of revenues. Hey, we're going out and working with these enterprises that are validating data. They pay us a licensing fee. We go back and we invoice the Constellation Spore Enterprise State Channel for that service, and the business logic is programmed into it as a rev share. And so when we put that contract on chain and it's audited on chain, those funds will be used to go purchase DAG through the network. And as such, if there's logic in this business model where a percentage of revenue is distributed, that will be seen as a APY that is distributed to the people that are backing or supporting or locking up liquidity into that state channel. And so that becomes one example of how Constellation starts using our network. We start eating our own dog food, and we start showing even more transparency on what we're building through the uses of state channels. And so you can kind of start to see the formation of what many people call as a sink, or the kind of restricting of supply of the economy or of DAG. And we do that through just one state channel. And we do that by going, hey, we're going to program a state channel. We're going to put in this business logic. It's going to have this incentive for people to back this project. And in response for backing it, they'll receive a percentage of the revenue that we receive. So in this state channel example, you're actually connecting real world contract value to a digital ecosystem. Now, that's just one example. And because Constellation is a zero transaction feeless network, that gives us the ability to really define the sinks as we see fit. We can create a sustainable and scalable business by defining that business logic to invite backers and token holders and people to supply liquidity into certain projects. And that becomes one example. Now you start to think about looking at cross-chain liquidity and lattice. How does that unfold? Well, cross-chain liquidity requires liquidity pools. So somebody might come in and say, hey, they want to create a Monero bridge or cross-chain liquidity bridge between the two ecosystems. That's going to require liquidity. And so somebody will be able to go in and define their business logic to invite or incentivize people to provide that liquidity. Now, somebody else might come along, Mathias might come along, and he might say, well, I have a better program and I need to attract more liquidity to scale. So I'm going to create a APY program that's drastically more enticing than what Ben just built. And so our ecosystem starts to unfold into this competitive landscape that allows anybody to create a myriad of economic sinks that attract investors and token holders. Mathias, maybe you want to jump in and say a few words.
Well, Ben, I think you've said it very elegantly and eloquently as well. I mean, there's not really much to add in terms of the overarching vision. I mean, blockchain entrepreneurial framework that says it all. And maybe one thing I can add here is we have honed in on data verification in the earlier stages of the company. And now as we grow and as we scale, as the team grows, as responsibilities and the business itself grows, we've really been seeing that the data narrative and the datapreneur is literally just a small subset of that nascent ecosystem that we'll be launching this year in its entirety. So datapreneurship and that entire narrative around, okay, validating streaming data, validating massive amounts of data through schemas like Mobi, like Space ISAC, and all these use cases and business cases that stand behind validating large amounts of data, they don't go away. So they are in its entirety just a subset of what the network is capable of. These are direct application areas in which we can apply those business logics. So to add a third example around data, somebody might come along and say, well, I can actually deliver a Bloomberg-like terminal that integrates through the DAG network all the native chains and can glean insights across portfolios hosted on all these other native chains, and launch a state channel around that, which is akin or could be akin productized to a Bloomberg terminal. That Bloomberg terminal, in essence, is a token, but the service that is being offered is a subscription service. So if I want to have insights into that terminal or be part of that terminal, that is another business model in terms of a subscription fee that could be launched around a productization. And in that way, that's how we really need to think about state channels. State channels, each one of them is its own business. And as they are little parts of the entire network and they constitute the entire network, the network is growing because each state channel is actually underwriting their token and their contribution with hash power and or DAG. So it's not just, like in ERC20, I mint a token and I clog up the address range. I'm actually supplying quote unquote hash power, which is compute power, to the network. So I scale with my contribution and my business model. I scale the network itself. I contribute throughput. I contribute resources, which makes it actually in a truer sense tied to a real world metric. There is an underwriting of the entire economic model. And then another aspect to those multiple entities that will be launched on the hypergraph, and we mentioned Lattice, we mentioned Spore Enterprise State Channel, Bloomberg Terminal, cross-chain bridges. There are many different models that people, developers, entrepreneurs can come up with. NFTs, DeFi is all just a subsection. These are all subsegments of what we see as blockchain entrepreneurship. So this is not limited to data. This is not limited to DeFi. This is true blockchain entrepreneurship. And that's the message we want to deliver to the world this year. And that's how we're going to launch our products around the DAG terminal and around Lattice and around the enterprise state channels. That's how we want to show the world, okay, this is how you actually do business on and with a blockchain. And
So to go off of what Mathias is saying, existing blockchains and value-based networks include a sink or a faucet that's really just a speculative means to create an economy. And the gas fees that we're seeing on some networks are front run by node operators. This is really kind of creating a dicey area for the DeFi space. I think you've heard us all kind of talk about that, so I'm not going to go into that. But I like to think of an analogy or a metaphor to why we're building the way we are. The US economy has banks that are lent money, and banks go out and charge a fee to people that want to borrow money for a myriad of use cases, mortgages, personal loans, a business loan. And really, banks are kind of agnostic to what the business is. And the government says, hey, these are the rules. Go out, lend money. We're going to advise you to increase the interest rate or decrease the interest rate to provide inflation or deflation. And they do this from a macro perspective. And these banks go out and they look at all these business proposals, the small business, medium-sized business that need money, and they do the best they can to mitigate their risk. They underwrite the risks that they have while also creating a business. A bank is a business. So their goal is to lend out money, but do it in a secure and accountable way, or else the bank goes under if you don't pay your loan back. So like the US economy, Constellation is really agnostic to any business that's going to be created on the hypergraph. And we kind of leave it up to node operators and token holders of DAG on what projects they want to support. What's going to earn them the most? What's going to provide more utility to the network? And it really becomes a democratic ecosystem for people to build on top of. And so in this kind of example, you see that really it's up to individuals to go out to the community, spin up a state channel, attach this logic, attract people into their state channels to provide liquidity. And this becomes this whole thing that Wyatt calls a generative economics, which he's put together a paper over the last 3 months that provides the math for how value and utility flows throughout the network. And allows people to see where value is being created in the network and provide that full visibility. So you can almost think of the L0 standard that we're building is kind of a way for you to present your business idea in a very simple programmatic way that collects different stakeholders in the network.
Yeah, and I want to add that's great, Ben. And I want to add one more point, because we're having this discussion around tokens, value, economy, generative effects that are basically self-reinforcing loops. And now you may ask, okay, we've discussed some of the things, some of the state channels, the business ideas, the logic. Okay, where does that lead us now? Where's the role of DAG in all this? And this really ties into consensus itself. So DAG is the main fiber that runs the uppermost layer in our consensus process. So in a sense of, okay, if there was ever, a government body knocking at our doors and be like, hey, what's the function of DAG in your network? Can you just remove DAG and you'd still be able to work? Well, our answer would be no, because DAG in itself is inherently linked into the consensus process. So you can't take DAG out of the equation. It's the main fiber that ties all the other fibers of the network, aka state channels, together. So what does that mean in its actuality? That means that DAG is in essence an index token of all the business activity that is happening on the state channels that are being spun up in the network. And Wyatt basically was able to prove that any value that is being injected into the network helps the entire network grow. Thus, the thesis of DAG being an index token is an actual reality. So what you can deduct from that, I leave that to your imagination, but you can see how these pieces of that ecosystem that we're building actually really work hand in hand and generate that self-reinforcing loop of value creation.
Thanks, Mathias. Is there any way you can turn on your camera?
No, because you're the host.
All right, there you go. There you go. Whoa. Yeah, so these are some of the breakthroughs that we've been having. And so over the next several months, we're going to be inviting projects to submit proposals. And the first wave of proposals, we're going to hand select and really showcase and highlight an appropriate way to build a state channel and attach incentive structures on top of that. And then over the course of sequential months, we're going to start letting the community vote on proposals that they want to see lit up on Constellation's Hypergraph. So a lot of our marketing efforts over the next, at least in the next month, as we build out the website, will be really defining Constellation as this kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem that people can really define their business logic on a blockchain and incite new accountability in place for people that participate in backing minted tokens or want to create a project that has more transparency and as such, like the Constellation Enterprise initiative, and putting that on a state channel in its entirety. So you can almost think that you look at what Benjamin Diggles does on the BD front, And if somebody thinks they can do a better job than Benjamin Diggles, then spin up a state channel, create the incentive structure, and go out and pursue that. It becomes a kind of equal playing field for everyone to participate in so many ways. And so it's less about having one metric define a tokenomics of an entire economy, but a myriad of different sinks that exist based off the business logic that everyone creates. We already have a huge list of proposals that have come in across every different industry. Advertising, somebody from the advertising industry wants to put this on Constellation. And a lot of those questions are, how do I attach more accountability in place when it comes to backing, getting people to back my project? So over the course of the next few months, you're going to see us really kind of nail in the definition of state channel, how somebody that uses the HTTP creates a state channel and attracts more attention to their project through aligned incentives. So take a pause there.
Yeah, so the guys are muted, yeah.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift. I think this is something that we're excited to talk about, and it's going to kind of evolve out into a tokenomics paper. It's going to evolve into a one-sheeter. You're going to start to see this theme kind of play more fluidly throughout our entire community. And then we'll kind of announce some of these early projects that we want to bring on board to get people excited, understand how to do it. What are we talking about? And then I think everybody's going to start to click that what we're building and how cross-chain compatibility or liquidity comes into the ecosystem is that just invites more capital to seamlessly come into our network with no fee structure. We want that open fluidity to occur. We want to invite more mainnets, more protocols to be able to, people to be able to bring funds from one ecosystem into our ecosystem and have that fluidity flow. So you're going to see a lot coming out on this over the course of the next month. I know we kind of scheduled a tokenomics paper coming out in about a month, but we wanted to plant this seed on what we're building behind the scenes. Another major step for us is to walk people through how people that are building on Constellation, their progress into building on Constellation and when that comes live. So kind of a lot in a quick phone call, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of follow-up questions around this, and we're happy to kind of take those as they come. And you'll be seeing a lot more marketing material around this that explains it in a very deep way and a very simple way. So we're pretty excited to bring you guys into the fold of this. That's all I got for their Hypergraph Hour today. Next week, Reihito Hatsuyama will be joining us. We finally scheduled him. We're going to be talking a bit about this idea of kiratsus. It's kind of Japanese business of horizontal and vertical integrations and how the Japanese economy recovered after World War II. Don't worry, it's not going to be a history lesson, but really how Constellation is a decentralized kiratsu of all sorts, where many of these kiratsus, like the Mitsubishi Corporation, have a lot of subsidiaries that are all tied to some sort of banking layer that provides economic support to all the subsidiaries. And so now you can start to see the correlation between Constellation's ecosystem and DAG and the subsidiary companies as state channels that are being built out. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about NFTs and Pokemon and mythical games and Line Corp that Ray is a board member on all of these and how they're exploring blockchain technology and what they're doing in that capacity. So that will be at the Hypergraph Hour next week. It'll be a fireside chat where we're kind of I'm kind of interviewing Ray versus me talking on a mic or anything like that. So. Cool. I just got one question on the light nodes. I will plant the seed that state channels are the intermediary to light nodes. You can almost picture a light node as a very simple state channel in a way. but I'm not going to say any more on that. So, Mathias, anything from your desk?
No, it's all good. I think that's pretty comprehensive. I mean, there was a question around Lattice here. 1 minute update on Lattice. I mean, what Lattice is and going to be. I hope that has become clear through what we've described in terms of the ecosystem. So it's going to be one state channel within the entire ecosystem, and the build out is happening in stride with the protocol build out. So it's happening as we speak. And that means we will be coming out with a tokenomics that for Lattice that will incorporate these cross-chain APY dynamics and all these things that are in stride with how the overall network functions. So that's going to be the next steps and releases. There's some good stuff coming up on that front.
It'll be exciting to walk people through and show them how not only are we connecting major ecosystems, but when you're spinning up a state channel with this defined business logic, that the role of the Stardust Collective will be able to vote on projects to get them on Lattice so that they can participate in cross-chain liquidity as well.
Exactly. So in a way, just to cap that off, if there are not more questions coming up, would be, imagine WordPress. And WordPress is agnostic to whatever people want to build. You can do a flower shop that sells flowers online. You can do, a writers collective that publishes poems, or you can be a trading view, that publishes charts and has a chat. So pretty much any business activity that you can imagine can be run on WordPress, and they are just the infrastructure layer that enables people to do business. And in the same way, the Hypergraph network is an open network that invites and allows seamless business activity across all verticals for everybody, not just for people in DeFi, not just for people in the crypto industry, but really a set of tools that allows people to do business in its truest sense on and with a blockchain.
Right on, Mathias. I love that. I love that connection. Well, thank you all. Let's get excited. We're about to build some cool shit.
All right, guys. All right. Thanks for being here, and see you soon.
Bye.